Hi, primates! Links to the video we react to today are in the description below. Also be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as hit the little bell to be notified whenever we go live or put out new content. It really helps us out. Thank you so much. Enjoy the show! It's supposed to be a funny morning. Memes.
In the 2000s, you most likely have spent hundreds of hours playing Flash games. Flash games were made in Adobe Flash and were incredibly easy to access because you could play them right inside of your browser. If you would lurk around these websites, you would find an endless amount of games from all different genres. Fighting games, strategy games, platformers, puzzle games. There was Flash games for anything and everything. I'm sure a lot of us also have memories of staying up too late on one of these websites and stumbling across a game that would terrify us. Or even sometimes we would find a game that looked innocent and fun, but actually had dark and disturbing twists and turns that would give us trust issues for all of the new games that we found. Today, we'll be going over an iceberg that I created that's dedicated to these types of Flash games. This is the Disturbing Flash Games Iceberg Explained.
Okay. Yeah, I used to go on to like Newgrounds and stuff for like a cool minute.
The Ex Mortis series was developed by Newgrounds developer Ben Leffler and consisted of 3 point-and-click mystery games. The first game, and the most popular one, was released in 2004 and was about the player waking up in the woods with no memory and taking shelter in a spooky abandoned house. As you explore the house, you solve different puzzles, which are surprisingly still pretty good to this day. Venturing into different rooms around the house, you notice many disturbing things such as blood, torture devices, and even a fresh human head in the microwave. The game was prime Flash horror with a few cheap jump scares sprinkled without. The audio jump scares, however, are still pretty spooky to this day, especially if you're wearing headphones. I'd actually argue the audio is what makes this game completely. The creepy voices that would play throughout the game are pretty well done for old Flash standards. Crimson Room was released in 2004, a bit before Ex Mortis was, and it is considered one of the first and most influential games of the escape room genre. The game was developed by, sorry if I butcher this, Toshimitsu Takagi, and it is about the player waking up in a crimson room with no memory. That is a recurring theme for most of these escape room game plots. The game has unique line art and it is very short, especially if, like me, you just click all over the screen to try to find your next clue. The game itself isn't supposed to be scary, however I included it on this list because of the influence it had on the genre, and some people also felt creeped out by the mystery and quiet atmosphere. But as you'll see, this is definitely the tamest entry on this iceberg. The Grudge Flash game was released in October 2004 and was actually created by Sony to help promote the 2004 Grudge movie. There's no evidence on whether the game actually improved ticket sales for the movie, but the movie was horrible anyways. However, the game was decently scary for its time. The game had actual scenes from the movie and a few good jump scares here and there, but the coolest part I found is that in the beginning of the game you can enter your name, and then as you play your name will be used in ways to scare you, like having your name pop up in writing on the wall. A cool detail regarding that is if you try to enter the name God, you won't be able to play the game. The game only takes around 5 minutes to beat, and it isn't really a game as it's more of a visual novel that you click through, but it was still a good scare for the time. Gretel and Hansel was released in 2009 and was developed by Mako Pudding. The game is based on the Hansel and Gretel fairy tale and has a really cool, unique art style and really nice visuals. The atmosphere is very grim, and the game has a wide variety of death scenes for the characters if you fail an objective.
It has a wide variety of death scenes! Oh goody!
Some of the death scenes are pretty gruesome, which can be really disturbing, especially if you were misled by the fairy tale title.
Oh!
Hotel 626 and
run over by the dude on the car with the horsey thing!
Asylum 626 are point-and-click adventure games released on Halloween 2008. It was developed and published by Snack Strong Studios, which was a fake studio created by Doritos to promote the return of 2 of their old flavors, Black Pepper Jack and Cheddar Barbecue. A very cool thing
Cheddar Barbecue sounds dope though.
About this game is that the Hotel 626 website that hosted this game would only allow you to play between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. If you visited the site during the daytime, you would be instructed to come back at 6 p.m.
Oh,
the game is more of a visual novel that has live-action visuals, but it still looks like Doritos still put a lot of effort into it. At the end of the game, if you lived in the US, you were prompted to enter your phone number. If you did, you would get a pretty creepy phone call. Not really sure what these 2 flavors have to do with the content of the game, but it's a shame that companies don't do stuff like this anymore.
For real though.
Lomando.com is a website created by an anonymous developer named Nohito, and the game came out sometime in 2011. Lomando is known in Japan as Fancy Island and was originally intended only for a Japanese audience, but it was later translated to English. The website seems very innocent at first, as you're greeted by this pastel pink color scheme and a cutesy character with cat ears in the middle of the page. However, as soon as you click on her, you are immediately launched into the game. The game consists of hopping around a bunch of different puzzles and videos, some of the puzzles being pretty tough and requiring a lot of good memory. As you solve these puzzles, cryptic messages and more disturbing imagery will appear as you bounce around the levels. Also, you're getting jump scared with a side of game, as this game is almost 90% jump scare and 10% game. For sure, turn down your headphones if you're going to be visiting this one.
What the freak is that?
Lomando also has a community of people on Reddit who still post about lore and other things over 10 years later. The house released in 2005 and was developed by Sintai Studios. The game is about the player investigating 5 rooms of an abandoned house where a family of 4 was found dead. The subtle hints and clues you find that piece the story together are pretty good for a flash horror game story. The game isn't too much of a puzzle game as it's pretty easy and linear and you can just click throughout to get to the end. The game has great sound with a few small jump scares throughout, but it's mainly just a giant suspense fest that leads up to the big jump scare at the end. 2 sequels were released for the house, but most people just remember the first one.
Oh, nah!
Ghostescape was a horror puzzle game developed by Pasonic 3D and uploaded to Newgrounds in 2008. The game has good atmosphere and a unique art style that kinda reminds me of the original Fallout games. Every room you're in feels alive and breathing as there's always something going on. The game is about traversing a haunted house and photographing ghosts as you try to escape. This entry isn't very scary in the modern day, but it is for sure the best in terms of puzzles so far, as it seems a lot of effort was put into the mystery and puzzle aspect. 2 other games released in the Ghostescape series, but they're more or less just the same as the first one with new houses and updated visuals. Shout out to Ghostescape though, because it's one of the only entries on this Iceberg that doesn't really rely on cheap jump scares.
That's a pretty cool idea though.
Escape the Boogeyman was released in 2005 as a promotion for the 2005 film Boogeyman.
Oh,
the film was
terrible.
Movie. The game was surprisingly good for its time though. In the game, you try to escape a creepy, desolate house just with a flashlight while not getting caught by the boogeyman.
Isn't it weird that all the best, all the best scary games come out of, people who focus probably a little bit more on their game instead of focusing on the movie?
The boogeyman is just a shadowy figure, which is a bit disappointing, but he still has an ominous presence to him. It's completely first-person 3D, as you can control where the character moves. The visuals and presentation look a lot like Slender the 8 Pages, and it makes me wonder if there was some inspiration pulled from it. Again, I'm not really sure if this helped the ticket sales for the movie, but I'd much rather play the game than watch the movie.
Yeah, friggin' Boogeyman was just a bad movie altogether.
The torture game was developed in 2007 by Newgrounds user C-Man. The game consists of a chained-up, unresponsive guy that you can torture using many different tools and weapons. The game is incredibly gory and has a lot of details to the guy's anatomy, showing his bones and muscle.
I'll be honest.
This game is on almost every Flash game site, and so many kids played it back in the day, which was most likely not a good thing. But I'm not even gonna lie, playing it as an adult, it's pretty fun. It gained so much traction that it even had a segment on Fox News.
Television Council. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning.
We see that green you can paint the person you're torturing, you can stab them, you can take a chainsaw, that's a stake you can put through the body and red blood comes out. You can take a razor blade and start cutting him up. I mean, it's disgusting, Melissa. But others say, look, it's just a game.
I love how she had to specify that it was red blood.
You know, I get so sick of hearing that excuse. It's just entertainment. It's completely harmless.
This entry is referring to games made by the organization PETA. These games were made as PSAs to push their agenda about the wrongfulness of animal cruelty and abuse. However, PETA disguised most of these games as cute games that the average kid would want to play, and as the game progresses, more morbid imagery of the animals would show up. PETA even included real-life images of animal carcasses in some of the games. One of the most popular ones is Pokemon Black and Blue, which had some of the trainers wearing pelts of different Pokemon. Purgatorium was another visual novel-style point-and-click game posted to Newgrounds in 2006 by Bannana.
Like, the fact that they go and, put enough effort into making, an entire freaking, animal abuse Pokemons instead of actually helping out any animals. I'm just saying, it just seems like, your resources are being, diverted into the wrong places, maybe.
Ben Leffler, who is actually the same creator as Ex Mortis. The game isn't much different from Ex Mortis, however the imagery shown is a bit more gruesome and the jump scare at the end is a bit more scary. The Visitor is a series of games made by Z-Barf of ClickShake Games, with the first being released in 2008.
What the fudge?
You play as this little alien guy who washes up at a house in the woods. You must click through the house moving through as you find different ways to kill the people inside. The game has a lot of violence and gore, and wasn't really promoted to be a violent game, so a lot of kids stumbled across it and played it.
The frig, you're just like an alien eating things?
Was created in 2004 and was made alongside the film Scooby-Doo 2 that was released the same year. The game is a point-and-click adventure game and is completely innocent and perfectly fine for a kid to play. However, about 2 minutes into the game, there's a horrifying jump scare that comes out of absolutely nowhere. Not really sure why the developers placed this jump scare here, but it terrified many kids back in the day who were just looking to play a cool Scooby-Doo game.
Good. They need to be scared a little bit. Scooby-Doo is just like an intro drug to horror.
In 2009 on Newgrounds by user Sparky. The game was actually created by a team of 5 students for a design class. The game is about 2 young girls unattended by an adult approaching a dingy truck that reads free ice cream. The girls get kidnapped and you play as one of the 2 girls as you awake in a basement. You have to solve puzzles as you try to escape each room in the house without being seen by the man who abducted you, who's wearing a bloody chef uniform. The game has a lot of disturbing imagery and a huge shock factor. It was definitely one of the most popular disturbing Flash games.
What
Deep
happened
Sleep
to
was
the
released in
sister?
2012 and posted to Newgrounds by developer Scriptwelder. There's 3 games in the Deep Sleep trilogy, and you can actually buy all 3 on Steam for like $5. The game is a point-and-click game where you try to escape a dream world where shadow people try to stop you. The game has a unique pixel art style and has a great dark atmosphere. Like I mentioned before with other entries, I like this one because it manages to scare you without relying on cheap jump scares. Alice is Dead is a game released in 2009 on the Newgrounds by developer Lorestrom. The game is a murder mystery point-and-click game based on the original Alice in Wonderland fairy tale, and is about Alice being found dead and you must find the murder suspect. The game has some disturbing imagery that takes a morbid twist on the original fairy tale. The murder mystery noir theme set in the Alice in Wonderland world works really well, and the game is actually really good. I can see why the series was so popular and well received. Can Your Pet was created in 2009 by our good friends PETA, who are now repeat offenders of this Iceberg. The reason I separated Can Your Pet is because of just how popular the game was.
Yeah, PETA loves to do stuff like this instead of actually, like, you know what I mean?
At the time. The game is about the player dressing up and playing with a cute cartoon chick. The game gives you time to play and bond with the chick before giving you the option to click on a bicycle icon. Once clicked, the bicycle will turn upside down into a meat shredder.
Yeah, I remember this. To be fair, though, this was amazing content for YouTube like creators at the time.
And shred the chick up into pieces. This game falls into the category I mentioned before with PETA, where they would put out games with dark twists and blunt themes disguised as cute, innocent games that children stumble upon. Can Your Pet was everywhere, with a ton of large YouTubers playing in the early 2000s, and has a big reputation for scarring a lot of kids. Danae's Interactive was originally released in 1999 by Newgrounds founder Tom Fulp, but was re-released in 2006 on the Flash portal. The game is a very edgy game about a girl named Danae who discovers she has an STD and decides to commit. You can decide the way she goes about this by clicking on different things in her room. Not too much else to say about this one, other than it was just made for edgy sake, and there's no real themes or substance. This entry is referring to a couple different game over screens that would appear in the Flash game series Castle Cat. I'm not going to show these images, of course, but specifically in the third game of the series, a game over screen shows a real-life image of a black bag with a note on it that just reads Dead Cat. And the fourth game just outright showing a real-life dead cat as a game over screen. I'm not really sure why these images were included in such an innocent-looking game, and I feel bad for any kid who saw these game over screens while just trying to play the game. Again, this falls into the category of innocent-looking games that have disturbing twists or flashes of disturbing imagery for no real reason. The Ugly was developed and posted to Newgrounds in 2006 and might be the most heavy-themed entry yet. Gameplay-wise, it is a very short point-and-click game where you play as a young girl who comes home to find her parents missing. As you explore through the house looking for your parents, you see a newspaper that explains how a convicted R-wordist and serial killer escaped prison and now you know he's in your home. The game has a ton of disturbing imagery that almost looks like real images and a pretty shocking ending. I'm glad I didn't play this one as a kid because it definitely would have messed me up.
You can't home and find out that your freaking parents are like freaking gone? Just deleted by this fool?
Because it isn't actually a playable game, as it's an analog horror disguised as an old Flash game. Kinda like the popular Petscop that was being shared around in 2017, Lacey Games gameplay was posted to YouTube by user Ghost Tundra in late 2022. They set up Lacey Games as being kinda like a lost media now found Flash game series from the mid-2000s that follows a girl named Lacey as she goes on different adventures in different genres of Flash games. The games always start off innocent and they look like children's games, but it always takes a very dark turn towards the middle to the end. I find it cool that each entry is a play on different genres in the Flash game world. The first Lacey game is a dress-up game, then the second gameplay video posted was kind of like a Papa's Pizzeria-esque game, and the third was a pet shop game. I won't spoil any of the videos because you should definitely go check them out on Ghost Tundra's channel. I'm glad there's still things like this being created as it keeps the old Flash game world in circulation.
I love it. I would love to try that. Like, actually, though.
Crazy Piero was developed by, I'm probably going to butcher this, Yoshiaki Agiwara.
Oh, hold on. Are we good? I don't know why the freaking thing didn't want to, like, connect for a second there. Alright, it looks like we're fine now.
Sometime in 2005 and released only in Japan. The game is super simple and short. It's in an old-school pixel side-scroller type style, where you try and catch apples falling from the sky while dodging skulls that are also falling from the sky. As the player increases their score, more and more disturbing changes will occur through the game, such as realistic eyes watching you from the buildings, or creepy faces appearing in the background. Yoshiaki claims that the game is cursed and no player should go past a score of 40,000. Once the player gets a score of over 40,000 though, the screen will cut to black and show a ton of creepy repeating text, which then cuts to, of course, a big jump scare. There's not really much more lore or background to the claims as why the game is cursed, as I think it was just the developer trying to scare people. If you were to stumble across the game without knowing about the creepy aspect, I would definitely see why it would scare you because it does a really good job disguising itself as just an innocent old school style game.
That's pretty dope. But
For this last layer, I'm
I would've
probably going to
kept
have to
going
censor
with
and
the
can't show a lot of
ARG.
the gameplay in the background because they deal with the heaviest and most controversial
Look
themes
at
out
the
of any
artwork
Flash
here,
games.
though.
I'm going to have to switch up my language a bit too from here on out, just to please YouTube, so sorry, but I'm going to be a bit vague, but I'll still try to be understandable. If you are interested, however, in seeing the gameplay for some of these games I'll be covering, you can still play pretty much all of the games on this Iceberg on websites like 666 Games, or a lot of them are still on Newgrounds. Or if you just want to see gameplay, all of these are on YouTube still.
Oh, I bet they have all the nicest, bestest
Kaboom,
games
which
on
is what I'll be calling it for
666
short, released in April 2002 by Newgrounds user Fabulous999. The game is very simple and consists of a self-inflicted kaboomer who tries to get as many civilians on the street with his boom. The game, more specifically, is a side-scroller where you can move up and down the street and try to flock to the biggest group of civilians to get a higher score.
That's messed up.
You only get one shot per attempt, as you would assume, and some of the civilians can even be children. The game was extremely controversial, especially for releasing at the time that it did.
No,
Considering
Dad!
6 months before the game came out, there was a pretty big event that would have people be not a big fan of this game. The game was criticized by a plethora of news sources and media spokespersons, such as Fox News, the Jerusalem Post, Americans
Yeah, how
for
am I
Peace
not
Now,
surprised Fox is on
and
this?
pretty much everyone. Many protested for Newgrounds to take the game down, but Newgrounds would not budge, stating that they stand behind free speech and will only take down illegal content. The creator of the game is very nonchalant about the game and doesn't really see it as an offensive piece of media. I can definitely see why so many people criticized the game and why so many people were offended by the game, because it's so easily accessible and it was shared around so quick, and it must be tough if you knew somebody that was involved in a tragedy that the game is parodying. This entry released in 2002 and was developed by Newgrounds user Gary Short. In the game, you play in a first-person point of view as a janitor who has to protect himself from students using a gun.
Kindergarten?
The game, in very simple, cartoonish visuals, obviously depicts the students on the receiving end of the gun, and was made clearly as just an edgy random game with no meaning or theme. I mean, the final boss is literally Arnold Schwarzenegger. However, of course the contents of the game sparked controversy, and a little over 10 years later, the NRA claimed that the game was responsible for the Sandy Hook tragedy. Yes, you heard that correctly. As they were going over their usual suspects of violent video games at the time that would cause children that play them to commit violent acts, they singled out this game. Quick disclaimer, there is no evidence supporting this claim at all,
Splatterhouse was cool,
but it's still interesting
was
that
so repetitive.
they found this game 10 years later and decided to single it out. The creator of the game, Gary Shore, actually messaged Newgrounds creator Tom Fulp to delete his account and all of his games off of the website, but you can still play this game on other websites, of course. This entry is easily the most controversial entry on this entire Iceberg, and was released in 2007 by Newgrounds user Pygmy. The game tries its best to crudely and cartoonishly recreate the events of the Virginia Tech tragedy, while being as offensive as possible, really. The game even uses some of the victims' actual names for some of the characters. This one sparked a bit of controversy, of course, to say the least,
Yeah,
and had some big
he's just
media
doing
people
that to
trying to
piss
start a
people
boycott
off.
for the game. There was even bounties to take the game down. The game is actually still up on Newgrounds to this day, as we've seen in the past how hard it is to get games taken down off of Newgrounds. While a part of me appreciates how hard it is to get games taken off of Newgrounds, another part of me thinks it's not a really good idea to give people this much creative freedom on an easily accessible website that many children frequent to play games on. This game is clearly made as a troll game that's only purpose is to be as offensive as possible. The creator had no remorse or guilt for creating the game, and actively trolled people that were upset about it. A little fun fact, actually, this game is in Games Radar's top 7 most evil games of all time. Deservingly
It's
so,
odd,
because
but
not only is
like
it one of the most
they
disturbing
really
and
like
evil
it's a
Flash
weird
games ever,
mindset to have
but
when you
it's
can
one of
just
the most
like
disturbing and evil games ever.
not even necessarily just not care about what people say, but actively go and seek out
Pico
people's
School
disapproval.
is, funny enough, the oldest game on this
idea
list,
why.
releasing in early
Hey,
1999,
welcome,
and was created by
welcome.
Tom Fulp, who is the creator of Newgrounds. The game is actually one of his first games for kickstarting Newgrounds and the Flash game scene in general. While it's one of the first Flash games, it's also one of the most disturbing and controversial Flash games as well.
Oh, good.
The game, which is based on the Columbine tragedy, is a point-and-click
Oh,
game where you play as a
great.
student named Pico at school who has to fight a group of other students who just got done committing tragedy on the school. Pico School, as of this day, has pretty half-and-half reception, with some seeing it as harmless, edgy fun, and others seeing it as very harmful and could cause real-life issues. After researching this entry, I could definitely see why Tom Fulp is so protective over the games on his site, as he also has experience creating games of this nature. So that was the disturbing Flash games Iceberg explained.
Okay.
Again, the chart was made by me, and I had a ton of fun researching all the entries on this list, as it was pretty nostalgic for me.
I
Did
mean,
any of you
there's
guys play any
quite.
of these games that was featured on the list?
I kind of
Was
want
there
to
a game that I
try
forgot
out
to include on the chart? Let me know in the comments.
Lacey's
Thank you all for
games
watching,
one.
and if you
Since there's
enjoyed
like
this
three
video,
of them, it seems like
please
there's
feel
a
free
whole
to subscribe
set.
and leave a like. It helps me out a ton. Alright, it's getting late now. You guys need to go to sleep. That's all from
And
me.
some of the
Have
early
yourself
ones
a
that he
damn
showed
good one.
off too were freaking dope. That could be pretty cool, especially since we're gonna start getting into Lacey games. We need to like start getting into more scary stuff, dude. We're starting to get into that season too, you know. Thank you so much, Primates, for watching this all the way to the end. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as hit the little bell for a rainbow explosion that will go ahead and notify you every single time we go live or put out new content. Thank you so much, goodbye, and thanks for swinging by.